Today is the 3rd of December, 2022. Let's do our disclaimer first. It's my trading plan for Monday, December 5, 2022. Remember, I can be completely wrong, and any trade you make should be at your own risk. Looked for a gap in a prompt move outside the day's range. We certainly got that. This is the pattern with the early high. And Monday's pattern should also have the early high. This is a reminder of what we said. Gap, prompt move. These are my calls for next week. We said bears needed early weakness, and if it happened, we could get follow through lasting quite a while. Though we got the early weakness, we certainly haven't had follow through yet. Doesn't mean that won't happen, but it still leaves things up in the air a little bit as far as I'm concerned. If we get follow through, everything is still going to work, and that's still entirely possible, because we have a lower MEJT target of 4046.43, most likely to print on Monday. Just remember, if we gap up smartly, the price isn't killed, but the time is. We got an ultimate buy signal in the morning. That certainly worked. You could argue we had an ultimate sell signal too, with a target to undercut this low, but when I give my statistics at year end, I have to use the rules I used when I had a computer program. I can't just eyeball things the way I did in the book. And according to the rules in the computer program, we just missed having an ultimate sell. So even though it's likely we undercut this at some time, I'm not going to count it. Now, I did have an error in my count of DeMark's sequential and combo sell signals. Someone pointed this out to me. I'm always grateful when somebody corrects me. I've been doing this a long time, but I still make mistakes. And I've said before, we all play on the same team, and when somebody points something out to me, I'm always grateful. And I like to learn from other traders. Anyway, this wasn't part of the reason we were calling for a top here. We listed the reasons earlier. What makes me a bit concerned here about the top is that we have this rally into a declining 200-day moving average, and that usually kills it, usually kills the rally. And the longer we stay over this moving average, declining or not, the more possibility the rally's not over. This oops was because I counted wrong. That was just to remind me to mention it, so we'll get rid of it. So we're not really reversing from this moving average as fast as I thought we would. Doesn't kill the idea, but you have to keep an open mind until things are proven. Well, here's our count. The main reason we're thinking this is a possible top is because of the wave count in this trend line here. Now remember, this is a strong trend line. If this is a top, this should hold. If we go through this trend line, especially if we gap over this trend line and get follow through, this whole idea falls apart. And that hasn't happened yet, and I'm still thinking we go down, but I don't know how we'll open on Monday. When you have an all-day rally on Friday, usually it'll follow through when you open on Monday. And if it doesn't follow through, particularly if we gap down smartly, that's very negative. So if this is the end of the road for the rally, you really want to see a gap down, a sharp gap down Monday, and we aren't going to know that until Monday. Now here's a stilt and here's a diamond, and The diamond on stilts is a pattern I made up, but the diamond isn't. The diamond is supposed to be a negative pattern, whether there's a stilt or not. And when you have a diamond, it's supposed to drop. It would be nice if this worked every time, but I will tell you it does not. And the normal pattern for us is to drop from here, but if we go up instead, it can be quite positive. If we drop, the target's to retrace to the origin of the stilt, which is over 100 handles down. So if we gap down here, it could be a long way down, but that hasn't happened yet. The longer term picture has a number of candidates for a low. No matter how you count this, this is an overlapping correction, and overlapping corrections are corrective waves, they're not impulses, and they retrace at some point. So at some point, I don't know when, I think we're going to go through this high and hit new highs. Doesn't mean you won't go lower first. This low we had last month is one candidate for a low, and even if we undercut it slightly, that would just be a retest of the low and a 2B bottom. Now, of course, that's not the only candidate, but it's a reasonable candidate, and when you have a reasonable candidate, you have to at least leave the door open for the fact that sell signals might not work. Well, Monday's pattern has the early high. Normally it's a negative day with a final hour low, but if it's strong instead, more strength tends to follow. Lately, a significant number of these days in the cycle have been positive days. And don't forget, all-day rallies on Friday will often follow through. There's a lower MEJT target. Unless we gap up smartly, the rules call for it to print. So far, the rally all day Friday has merely been backing and filling of the initial drop. We haven't overtaken any prior highs, and until we do, it's just backing and filling of the initial drop, and the initial drop has to be given benefit of the doubt, but not if we keep going up here. We've formed a diamond, which is a bearish pattern. There's trendline resistance and a rally into a declining 200-day moving average. All these things point to a drop, and perhaps a significant drop on Monday. What's missing, however, is deterioration of market breadth. If we're going to tank, I would like to see fewer and fewer troops leading the market higher. And market breadth remains strong here as measured by the BP-SPX indicator, and that makes me a bit leery of getting too aggressive on the short side. Gapping up strongly on Monday as always kills the call. Gapping over the declining trend line needs only confirmation from subsequent day's action to kill the idea of a top here, because when strong signals fail, they fail big. So we have the lower target, we have a diamond, we have the declining trend line, we have the declining 200-day moving average. We really have all we need for a top here, but we really, if this is a top, you really should start by moving down strongly on Monday, and if we don't, I'd be suspicious that something else was going on. If we were to gap up strongly Monday, I mean, you can count this as an ABC with good fibs here, and that corrective wave could be over. If we gap up strongly Monday, this whole idea of a top could be killed. I'm not saying it's going to happen. We aren't going to know that until Monday. The odds still favor lower. But if that happens, this whole idea of a top here could be thrown away. So we'll have to see how we open Monday. I'm looking for a big drop down. But if we get the opposite, we don't have to bet any money until we know how we open. If we get the opposite, I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for it to collapse. Monday has the early high. It's usually a negative day, but lately a number of these days have been positive. And that's today's call.